What's going on, guys? Back at it again with another Minecraft Let's Play. And today's a bit of a different video because we're going to be learning about why literature matters and why you should read and what you can get out of it. So we start here in the cave. So this is the allegory of the cave, Plato's allegory of the cave, and we see that we have the prisoners at the campfire and then the people passing by casting a shadow on the wall. And of course this is what they perceive as their reality. This shadow is real to them, like that's like the real world. Go straight into it. Now, how does this cave and these prisoners trapped in this cave, and then the story of one escaping to the daylight out here, how does that relate to reading literature? Well, much like the prisoner who can escape through like a passage or whatever, is analogous to reading a good book, because when you finish with that book, you may be able to actually take something from it and view the world differently than you did before reading it. Metaphor for this cave and the prisoners can be related back to all of the text that I'm going to use in this video, like Fahrenheit 451, my poem, and the book thief can all be related back to this. All right. Okay, and that brings me to the poem. And the poem that I chose is The Road Not Traveled by Robert Frost. And now, obviously, we see here we have the path that diverges. And I want to highlight a couple lines from this poem. So one line goes, "And long I stood and looked down one as far as I could see, to where it bent in the undergrowth, then took the other just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted clear." And then another line, another like couple lines from it. "Two roads diverge in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference." So the whole poem, but mainly just those highlighted lines, really connect to everything. So this obviously is the path that is more appealing. You know, it's lit up by these lights with the torches. It's fenced off, so it's more safe, and you know exactly where you're going. And this one is the one less traveled, and you don't know what you're getting. The path is barely even defined. So obviously it's going to be more perilous to go through this path, but it also could be more adventurous. Now, I'd like to draw this back to the cave, because in the cave, the prisoners, just looking at the wall, they're kind of going on this path in their minds. Like they're just satisfied where they are. They don't really care. But the prisoner that breaks free and goes and sees the actual reality, better understanding of reality, he goes on this path, and it seems more dangerous and perilous, and the other prisoners don't get it, but it's more adventurous, and he's rewarded for it because he gets like a better understanding. Now, this can also be related back to why we should read literature, and why especially upcoming high schoolers should read the books that we have read this year. Because, so especially back to why young high schoolers should read, is because now the path less traveled would be to read these books and really try to understand the meaning behind them, opposed to just, you know, like now it's just all like social media, YouTube, just kind of consuming media in a different way that you might not be able to get the same thing that you're getting out of books. So I think that reading is the road less traveled relates back to the poem, and then also it can be related to both Fahrenheit 451 and the Book Thief, because both of the characters in those do take the road less traveled. Montag, through literature, he comes to a deeper understanding about, how the world is and how it could be, and like everything that's kind of wrong with it and all the injustice in it, and how like actually dystopian it is. So that's just like basically how the poem relates to all that. Now we're gonna go to the two of the major texts, which are Fahrenheit 451 and the Book Thief. All right, so now we're gonna move on to our next text, which is Fahrenheit 451, and this recreation is Montag's house. So we think I thought of it as very sterile and just very ordinary. Like every single house would look at it like this. It's a little bit wacky, like fireproof material, just metal, and then some like plastic or prismatic blocks, kind of just like very nothing out of the ordinary. And then we go in, and over here we have the TV room, which is kind of like a metaphor for kind of being brainwashed from society, just like the road. That's like, this is what everybody's doing, the road more traveled. And then just go up here, and we have like their room, bathroom. So now how does this relate to everything that we've already talked about? Now this relates back to the cave, because much like the prisoner that escaped and got a better understanding through reading books and through consuming literature, Montag, he gains a greater understanding of like how the world is and like how wrong it is, and he can see that. So he kind of goes on the journey of, like, he goes on the journey of escaping up to the light, and he kind of gains a new reality, a new look on the world through books, much like books can change your view on the world if it has a good message and it really connects with you. Now this also connects. Now there is an obvious connection between this book and the Book Thief, and that would be the fire, and not just the fire, but the burning of books. So now we have a scene from the Book Thief of the book burning, where Liesel steals her. So this is Liesel, can find a little girl skin, but where she steals her first book, and she steals it right out of the fire. And now we see all of these Germans, and they all have books in their hand, and they're all burning these books. And this is kind of like a message of suppressing literature, because the Nazi Party knows how much power it holds, and then very much like in Fahrenheit, the government knows like what's actually in literature and how it can change people's minds, just like we see it changes Montag. So this fire and this symbol of burning books is really, really powerful to show you, like, the same thing with the fire. So we have the firehouse from Fahrenheit 451. So we have like the mechanical hound, and then the fire truck, the beetle, the pole, and then like their card table. So very much like the fire, they go and they just flamethrow books, secret libraries of people who are trying to hold it, because it holds valuable information that if people were to get their hands on and actually read and think about it, it would totally change their view of reality, their view of the world, and they would realize that this isn't how we should be living. This is like crazy. Last thing that I have to talk about is a nonfiction article that I pulled out, and this article is by the Washington Post, and it was written very recently, within the past year, about how teens are using social media more and reading books less. Now, this is very clear that so the people who are using social media, they're just the prisoners looking at the shadows on the wall. That's their view of reality. It's very 2D because you're only getting on social media, you're only seeing a small portion of how the world actually is. But if you read books, you're going to get so much more variety and you're going to get so much more out of it than if you just look at pictures or sentence tweets about everything that's happening. You actually need to think about these things yourself, not just read other people's. Um, and this is since this is a very recent article, this is what is happening right now in the real world, and we can see how it's affecting people because it just shows that it's just a fact now that more teens are using social media than they are reading books. Okay, so overall, my personal experience with reading all of these books and consuming all this literature has been that, I have taken stuff out of it and I've thought about the things that we were reading and kind of consumed it, whether it was Fahrenheit 451 or The Book Thief, and I can kind of see firsthand that even though, take for example Fahrenheit 451, which was written over 25 years ago, we can see some of the major themes and things that are happening. We can see that those are happening in our real life, like right now. Like information is starting to get watered down, media is starting to get watered down, is appealing to more people, and stuff is being canceled because of it's offensive to people. And I think that just really shows we can't lose sight of how literature, how we can't just get stuck looking at the shadows on the wall, but we need to escape the cave and find that higher view of reality through, and we can do that. In one way that we can better do that is through books and through reading. So I would encourage all upcoming high schoolers that are maybe unsure of the class and if they're going to enjoy reading the books, that even if you don't enjoy reading the books, you can still definitely get something out of it. And if you do enjoy reading the books, then that's even better. You can get even more things out of it, and it will change how you look at the world just based on everything that I've seen firsthand.